Within the NBA narrative, there are aspects of players' careers that mythologize their legacy, and without a doubt, one of the most valued is loyalty. Dirk Nowitzki, Kobe Bryant, or Tim Duncan are players who have gone down in the history of the league, not only for being part of the absolute elite, but for having played their entire careers with the same franchise. But this is not the norm. In fact, after Damian Lillard's trade to the Milwaukee Bucks, there are only 4 players who have stayed for 10 years with their current franchise, 3 of them being the core of the Golden State Warriors dynasty: Stephen Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green. Next on the list are Giannis Antetokounmpo and Joel Embiid, players who are not exempt from appearing in numerous trade rumors every summer. And in case it hasn't become clear to everyone, the NBA is a business that has the 30 owners of each franchise and countless more investors. These businesses work as a speculative market in which the value of the company depends directly on which team makes the most baskets. So there's a great economic interest in the offices of the league, whose managers have to make sure that the fans in their city are sufficiently interested in the team. Over time, and inevitably, conflict of interest situations arise. And no, they're not occasional. Just this summer, we experienced just such a situation. After 11 years with the Portland Trail Blazers, on a relatively competitive team that was never enough, Damian Lillard asked his GM Joe Cronin for a trade. And basically, the point guard said he was only satisfied with one destination, which was the Miami Heat. The Blazers were indebted to Lillard for his loyalty, but his claims were utopian. And finally, when he saw that a trade to Miami wasn't viable, he tried to withdraw his formal trade request. To no avail, but hey, at least Lillard intended to be traded to a winner, and he ended up on the roster of one of the biggest title contenders this season. But other players haven't been so lucky. Being traded for a player doesn't just mean that his role in the league and his career can take a decisive turn, for better or worse. It means moving cities, losing your inner circle, and on many occasions, moving away from your family. And that was precisely the feeling Harrison Barnes had to experience during a cold night on February 7th, 2019.
Reportedly, Harrison Barnes, mid-game, is being traded to Sacramento for...
That's the face of a man who knows his life had just changed completely. Just like any other day, Barnes took the court, warmed up, and, as was customary during that season, came out in the starting 5 for the Dallas Mavericks. However, in the third quarter, something changed. Harrison learned that he had been traded to the Sacramento Kings during the same game, and did not step on the court again for the rest of the night. The small forward had 10 points, 3 rebounds, and 1 assist. Those would be the last he would get with the Dallas Mavericks. But really, that trade was a blessing. Barnes has become a key part of the young and upcoming Sacramento Kings, becoming a very important player in the locker room who just secured a $54 million deal for the next 3 seasons. This doesn't mean that his career didn't take a drastic change with an unwanted trade, in which we could see his reaction live.
We have not seen Harrison Barnes on the floor for the Mavs. We are aware of rumors that...
A very, very similar situation to the one suffered by DeMarcus Cousins in the 2017 All-Star Game in New Orleans. The then center of the Sacramento Kings arrived at the event with averages of 27.8 points, 10.6 rebounds, and 4.8 assists per game. In fact, DMC was posting career highs in scoring and assists during that season. But right after the All-Star Game, this happened.
Oh, really? That's whatever.
What his press aide told him was, quite simply, that he had been traded to the New Orleans Pelicans, at the peak of his career, and after showing no intention of leaving the Sacramento Kings.
Is this where you want to be, Sacramento?
Yeah, I love Sacramento. That's where I want to be.
But as much as Cousins loved the city of New Orleans, the season and a half he spent with the Pelicans was his last period of NBA dominance. A player who was a superstar in the league at 27 and at age 31 was unable to find a place in any team's rotation. A career cut short by injuries in which neither his GM nor his body were loyal to the player. "I don't want to play for any other team." Those were Drew Holiday's statements in an interview with the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel during last September 26th. And on September 7th, this happened. Drew was a player who had always stood out as an individual, but had never been part of a truly competitive team until he arrived in Milwaukee, where he became a third or even second option for a team that managed to win the championship in 2021. A perfect support for Giannis Antetokounmpo, capable of slowing down the offense of any perimeter star in the league. But when it seemed that he had found his home, the guard had to pack his bags to move to Boston via Portland, for the sole reason that his GM had found an upgrade at his position thanks to Damian Lillard's trade request, which had turned the NBA market upside down. Once again, loyalty was not reciprocated between management and player. But at the end of the day, Holiday's had an opportunity to shine in a competitive environment like Milwaukee, and now he'll do so again in Boston. Other players, again, have not been so lucky. Imagine being the franchise player for a team for 9 seasons. You've shown progression in absolutely every one of them, all the way to becoming one of the best players in the league. And then, your team decides to trade you for one of the very few players that are a step above you. And if that wasn't enough, that team that traded you away wins the championship the following season.
The Toronto Raptors are the 2019 NBA champions.
That's the story of DeMar DeRozan, who was traded to a San Antonio Spurs squad that was about to face a rebuilding process. A player who managed to turn a lost Raptors squad into one of the most competitive teams in the conference, and who, once again, had shown no desire to leave Canada, no matter what the Los Angeles media said. Or the even sadder Isaiah Thomas story. The 5'9" point guard who came in 5th in the 2017 MVP race and was traded for Kyrie Irving after playing injured during the playoffs that season. A player who became the face of the Boston Celtics and had played an unimaginable season carrying a weak team to the playoffs, but was replaceable in the eyes of Danny Ainge. Not by just anyone, that's for sure. But he was replaced by Kyrie Irving, who wanted to end his time in Cleveland. Isaiah's hip injury was key to his regression, which left him virtually without a spot in the league 12 months after being a top 5 NBA player.
They gave up on me.
Something similar is what Ben Simmons must have felt when he heard these statements from Doc Rivers.
Doc, you think Ben Simmons can still be a point guard for a championship team like the one you guys want to become?
Yeah, David, I don't know that question or the answer to that right now. So I don't know the answer to that.
There were many rumors that the Australian only wanted to play for the Lakers in the draft, holders of the 2nd pick that they ended up using on Brandon Ingram. But Simmons had never shown any signs of wanting to leave Philadelphia. After the terrible series against the Atlanta Hawks, his coach decided to throw him under the bus. This was the key event that shaped Ben's behavior over the next few months, which in turn eventually led to the end of his era of NBA dominance. The Sixers are also a franchise that's going through a similar process nowadays after James Harden said, well, you can guess. So for those who haven't figured it out, loyalty doesn't exist in the NBA. There's simply no such thing. Every asset has a price. Think about your favorite superstar. LeBron, Steph, KD, Giannis, Luka, all of them, I repeat, all of them could leave your team in exchange for Victor Wembanyama. In fact, I'm sure more than 1 or 2 franchises would be willing to trade multiple stars for the Frenchman. Because at the end of the day, having him seems to ensure that you're going to compete for at least the next decade. Wembanyama is, in fact, the only asset that's untradeable in the NBA as of today. And the only reason is that there's nothing worth more than him. Because if there was, trust me, he'd be traded too.